Okay, so last time we blocked in some of the colours on Samantha Carter. Nothing particularly neat, but as you can see, a lot of those colours are now faded as they've dried. And I'm now going to mix one of the colours I was already using into the blue that I was using, so into the burnt umber into the ultramarine. And that will create a dark that unifies some of the blue costume with the burnt umber on the flesh and the hair. So I'm going to be now breaking down those blocks into smaller subsets. So we've got dark on this part of the costume. I'm still using the bigger brush because I'm not bothered about being too neat for now. So bring a dark down there. There's a shadow there. Quite a big expanse of shadow there. Bring that shadow down. We've got, I might just put a bit more, make it a bit thicker for this next shadow, because that's fairly dark and thick there. I don't want it too thick that I'm going to get any acrylic ridges raising up in thick paint as yet. I'm aiming for still quite flat colours without anything too arty. So I've got shadow there, got a shadow here. So originally I put that in as just ultramarine, and I'm making it darker. Got a shadow here, and I've just, as you might be able to see, I've just got a bit of raised acrylic paint at the bottom of my card as a sort of a stand, rather than anything like a small holder that you'd have for a bigger sort of canvas. But we've got some more shadow there. We've got some shadows, darks in the hair. Here, and there's a bit of a dark here, but we'll be careful to not make the background too dark in the end. I'll just bring this shadow up a bit higher, and there is a shadow in the background there. Again, I'll be thinking about how much contrast I want, because you've got two tones, key tones there. You've got the highlights on that chin, which will obviously be offset really well by a dark, but then you've got darker shadows under the jawline, which would be brought out by a lighter tone, but I'll just decide towards the end for that. Now I'm still looking at this ink sketch and thinking, right, what have I got right and what have I got wrong? I'm putting in the same dark there. I'm absolutely leaving the eyebrows for now. So what do we block in now? So we've got some darker greens, so my sap green is now dry on the palette. So I'm going to just put a bit more sap green out. And we'll mix the sap green actually in with the mix that I've already made of the ultramarine and the burnt umber. So I'm unifying there again. And you can find, if over time with practice, when you've done a really nice sort of unifying painting with, say, a lot of, I don't know, a purple shade and a complementary, and then all of a sudden you introduce just a random colour from a tube that you've not used so far, it does stand out. It doesn't really necessarily work very well. So we'll just put in some of these new green shadows there. I'm overlapping that shadow there, bringing that down there. No, there's not much green shadow there, so I'm making it slightly darker than the reference, but that will dry later. And we've got, I could just pop a bit of that green shadow in there. And as I said before in the previous video, you do have quite a lot of greens in hair, so green tones, especially in blonde hair. Now, let me see, I'll put, these are quite dark greens, but dark. And then if I mix yellow ochre again with, I think, the new tone that I've created, so now we find we've got a little bit of the burnt umber, a little bit of the ultramarine, and I'm bringing it over onto the yellow ochre. No white as yet, and now I might water it down slightly and bring that new tone into some of the hair, not too much. So we're blocking again, but in little subsets now. I don't want it too thick, as I said, because I don't, once you've got the acrylic ridges in there from a really thick paint that you just allowed to dry like that, you can't really go back unless you go to the extreme of getting some sandpaper. So I think that works. And some of the hair is, I don't know if they've got more actual light or some greater peroxide. Sorry Samantha, sorry Amanda. But I'm not worried too much at this stage. It will be a problem if I'm trying to put white over sort of dark green and sort of beige colours, but we're still at an early stage. I'm just going to pop that onto this part of the costume that I missed earlier, and I might pop a bit in there. Not really worried because all that can be changed later, but I'm now going to just add some of this tone here in the background to what I think it's an architectural sort of artifact. So there we've got some hair tones, and I'm leaving a lot of the flesh for now because I really want to concentrate on everything surrounding the face, and then I will try and perfect the face. So what I'm looking to do now is put some of that same white onto my palette and mix it with pure ultramarine that I've already used, and then I'm just considering a tiny amount of burnt umber in there for some lighter breakdown. So I'm going to make this ridge in that colour. Bear in mind it looks darker while it's wet. Breaking that down. We've got a spot here that should have some sort of light green that I might do later. I'll fill that in later. But for now there are some very light spots that are not necessarily lighted highlights, they're just aspects of the costume. A lighter bit, lighter sort of grey tone. Where else? A little bit there, a little bit here. Now there are some even darker tones on the costume, so not necessarily the most shadowed. But I'm taking the ultramarine. I've got a bit of green there as an accident, but see how dark that is. Actually, I'm going to now add a little black to that ultramarine. So what we're going to try now is test that shadows, but thin it down. I'll just thin it down slightly. Put it on this buckle. I think it's a buckle. And there's a highlight there that I'm just leaving at the top. On there, what else is darker? The material under here is a little darker. And I'm put a more solid black there for now. Not solid black, solid dark there for now. And use some of this on the background. As I said, it's still fairly smooth and thin and flat, so there's plenty of opportunity to change that later. I might just put that in there as well. Now the skin of the neck, let's look at this skin of this neck. It's important for me to paint part of the face at the same time. It's just easier to avoid some glaring clashes between. You never really want a glaring clash when you're going from the neck to the face or the jaw, unless there's some very extreme lighting. But if I mix a bit of, what have I got there, burnt sienna with the same white, and then I'm going to bring quite a lot of yellow ochre into that. And then I'm going to put a bit of extra water on there. I'm going to try that tone out for more of the neck. That's fine, yeah. Bring that right down. And that will dry lighter, so I'm not too worried. But bring it right to the slightly shadowed part of the neck there. And we can come slightly over that shadow, which eventually will remove my ink. We'll just put a bit more in there. Then, as I said, we'll bring the same tone down across the jaw, hopefully unifying that for later. And I'm looking as I'm doing this at the reference, and I'm trying to see if I think the ink sketch is not perfect. Nobody can be perfect, but fairly accurate or not. So if it wasn't, I could potentially see this bit of ink in there. I can enlarge the chin. I'll just be careful to put the slight shadow there higher if I think it should be higher, which I've just done as illustration, and then I'll just put a bit of that tone into this shadow along the cheekbone. and a bit more there. And we can put, I wouldn't say very, I'll just add a bit more water to that to just look at putting some of the same tone around the eye sockets and along the nose. So although I said I was leaving the face, I don't mind putting some paint on the shadows for now. A little bit that was definitely going to be makeup on a TV show over there, even though it's subtle. Put just a bit of that tone there. I'll put a light amount of the same tone under that eye, and I'm bringing it out there, so that I'll probably lighten that later when I'm bringing a bit more down there. And the top of the ear is slightly shadowed, but the bottom of the ear is still quite light. So I think I'll leave that there, and I might edit out some of the silences and gaps there.